This is the Shanaclan Podcast with Hobbs and Lux.
Hello, welcome back to the Shanaclan Podcast for episode 12. There you go.
My pinky was cut off of the screen when I did the first one. It looked like I was just doing like the loser thing.
Yeah, bunch of losers for listening in. No, Here's what is up. Okay, so I'm back after a hiatus.
A one-episode hiatus.
One episode hiatus. Well, is it one or is it two?
No, it was one.
It's just the one. Okay. Yeah, so it's just the one. It's a long time coming. It's it feels good to be back, and it's definitely interesting recording from home because like we're so used to recording at school, right? So here's what's going on. It's a new year and hockey's around the corner. But since we just turned the calendar for the new year, Hobson, do you have any New Year's resolutions? Are you trying anything new?
How about like the opposite of that? I'm stopping doing something. I'm not trying something new. I'm stopping something that I used to do. Does that work?
What's that?
Well, I don't think I'll be drinking any more dark roast coffees from Timmy's anymore.
Okay. So what happened though?
Well, let me clear up right off the bat that I don't have any allergies that I know of. I haven't had an allergic reaction to anything since I was maybe 5 years old. And even then it wasn't anything more than, a couple hives on my arms and my face and maybe like an itchy throat, red eyes, whatever. So Thursday morning, I'm on my way into work and it's super early. It's like 5:30 in the morning. And I went through the drive-thru at the Timmy's near my place and I ordered a dark roast, a large dark roast regular. And this isn't my first time having a dark roast. I've had them before, no issues prior with them. But I think they just released a new type of dark roast or something because they've been advertising it. It's like, the all new dark roast going back to the original or something like that. So I figured, okay, maybe it'll taste different. Why not give it a shot? So I'm walking into the building and I'm taking some sips out of my coffee cup and everything's fine. And then I start noticing that my hands are starting to get kind of itchy. And obviously when that happened, I didn't connect the two because I've never had any issues drinking coffee. And if I did, why would it be my hands getting itchy, right? So I just continued about my day, minor inconvenience. I went outside to grab something and I came back in and I could feel my face starting to puff out a little bit. And I wasn't sure what was going on. And then I went into the washroom and my fucking face was out by like an inch. And my entire, like the area kind of around where my pathetic excuse of a goatee is, it's like, it was like red all around my chin, red above my upper lip, and red around my nose. And I figured, okay, this probably shouldn't be happening. So I went to my boss's office and I just kind of looked him in the eye. I'm like, something going on with my face right now. And he looked at me and he's like, yeah, your face is red and you're shaking. And I'm like, oh yeah, I might be having an allergic reaction to something. And then his immediate word to that was, all right, should we call an ambulance?
Wow.
It's here at 6:30 in the morning on a Thursday when my fucking face is blowing up like a balloon and I'm starting to get a rash. So didn't end up going to the hospital. I went home and I laid on my couch and my dad gave me, my dad had to go out to some fucking corner store and grab a Benadryl or something, a reactant, something like that. And we figured, okay, I'll take the reactant and we'll give it 20 minutes. And if it's still getting worse, if it's not doing anything, we're going to go to the hospital. And by that point, I'm sitting on my couch and I looked like fucking Rocky Dennis or something. Like I know that was terrible. I'm sorry, that was terrible. But I was sitting on my couch. My face was out by like an inch and I had this massive rash all over my arms and all over my back. And it was starting to grow on my face, like my face and my chest as well. And I was actually sitting there thinking I might die. I haven't had a reaction like this ever. And thankfully it didn't end up happening. I took the reactant and after 20 minutes, it started going down a little bit. The swelling started to go, the rash started to go. And
now is Benadryl the proactive medicine for allergies? Like, is that what you take before and not like during?
Well, I think the one that I took, I'm not sure if it was a Benadryl. I think it was just called reactant.
Okay.
And it worked as a reactant because I took it and then the rash started going away. But at the same time, the next day I also took one in the morning just to be safe.
Right.
And so I got eventually by like noon, all the swelling was gone, all the rash was gone. But the weird thing is I still have no idea what would have caused that reaction. Because like I said, I've had a million coffees from Timmy's before. I've probably 500,000 of that million have been dark roast, and I have not had any sort of issue like this. And so it kind of leads me to wonder, like, was it something in the coffee, or do you think maybe like they cleaned out the coffee machine before they made mine and I had a reaction to the solution they used or something?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, like some soap or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could have been that.
Hobson, you worked at Tim's, right?
Yes, for 3 months when I was 16.
Oh, okay, but like, how for the cleaning methods, like,
if you're about to ask me anything about the cleaning methods from Timmy's, I can't tell you because I did not pay attention. That's probably why I only worked there for 3 months. Yeah, it was.
So Hobson, this customer came in complaining about his hot chocolate tasting like black coffee. Why is that?
I didn't deal with any of that. I was solely a baker. So
okay.
Basically, all a baker means at Timmy's is you heat up the frozen product in the oven. And
it's fresh. It's always fresh, right?
Yeah, always fresh out of the freezer. Anyways, so yeah, I don't know what the reaction was to. It could have been the cleaning solution. Maybe they cross-contaminated the worker, touched something, and then touched my coffee. I don't know. But once you're allowed to go outside without getting arrested, I'm probably gonna go for an allergy test or something. But yeah, that was a fun little Thursday morning experiment for me.
Well, okay, so have you told the manager about that though? Like, that's not a Karen move. That's an actual...
No. I called in and they pretty much told me exactly what I expected to hear. They said, first of all, I asked if anyone had reported it, something similar, and they said no. And then I asked her I could find a list of ingredients, and she said you can get it online. And then she also said that the dark roast that they're using now is pretty much virtually the same recipe as the one they had before. So that's pretty much exactly what I expected to hear. I have no idea what caused it. I'm kind of in the dark, but for now, I'm just going to avoid getting dark roasts, I guess.
Well, you know what? I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're safe.
Thank you.
Like, that's scary, man. You have no idea what's going on, right?
No. Yeah. And especially, like I said, in my case, allergic reactions are not something that I'm used to.
No.
Now, speaking of allergic reactions, our guest that we're about to bring on knows everything there is to know about allergies. So let's bring him on for his second appearance on the Clan Pod and his second appearance in a row, Mr. Lucas Tanner.
Come on in.
World Juniors.
Lucas Tanner.
Whoa.
Come on in, big fella. All right, so
there he is.
How's it going?
There he is.
Buddy, that is a filthy jersey you got in the background.
Yeah, you like the reverse retro Kopi jersey?
Oh, it's unbelievable. The Kings reverse retro is one of the best.
It is beautiful.
I'd say it's the best, and that's not me being biased.
Right up there with the Avs. The Avs have a nice one too.
Yeah, I like. Oh yeah, the Nordiques throwback.
Yeah.
Real nice. So we were just talking about my little anaphylactic run-in on Thursday with coffees, and I mentioned that far more there is to know about allergies than either of us. So.
Yeah, but I can say that I've never had my face look that fucked after having like a reaction. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, I know. We just spent 5 minutes discussing how fucked up that is and where it possibly could have came from, but
who knows? I mean, you got it from coffee, didn't you?
Yep. Either coffee or a cleaning solution that was used on the machine before they made it for me, or a cross-contamination. I've got no fucking clue.
Fucking Timmy's, eh? You can never trust them.
Exactly. That's why I go to Don's instead.
Yeah.
Unreal. All right. So obviously the last time we had you on, we did a little World Junior preview. And obviously the reason you're here is to revisit the World Juniors and I guess kind of compare our takes and our predictions from last time. And some of them are bang on, but some of them are freezing cold. So to kick things off, let's just get some general thoughts from you on the tournament. So what happened to Canada?
Well, here's my take on what happened to Canada. So Canada was too good in this tournament. And I know that's like a shitty way of putting it, but like Canada was so good throughout the entire tournament that they didn't really know how to face adversity as a team. And especially in a short-term tournament like this, when, learning and growing as a team is so important to do on the fly. The fact that they didn't ever face adversity, they were never down in the tournament until the gold medal game. So they didn't know actually how to they knew how to score and blow out teams, but they didn't know how to come back from a lead. So I think that's what, and then when it happened in the gold medal game, they just weren't able to like actually be able to mount any sort of momentum in the game. So I think that's what Canada's biggest problem is, because there is such thing in a short tournament like this as being too good early on, and then it kind of can set you back afterwards, like later on in the tournament. Whereas the U.S. had a lot of tough matchups against Russia and Sweden early on in the tournament, and even Finland. That game went to overtime, I believe, in the semifinals there. So, you know, like the U.S. was able, like they knew how to grind out a win, whereas Canada did not.
But the issue I have with that, though, is that Canada also faced Russia and Finland. They may not have faced Sweden, but we all know that they would have beaten Sweden easily, right? So that was the line of thinking, like, okay, so Canada handled Russia easily. They handled Finland, maybe not easily, but they certainly handled them well, right? So they have been tested, but like they haven't had that adversity. I will agree there. They certainly didn't have to deal with the adversity, right? They didn't have to grind it out, right? They didn't have to learn the hard way, right? So yeah, it's.
So if you look at the beginning of that gold medal game against the U.S., Canada was playing better early on in the game, much like their games against Russia and against Finland and teams like that, where they were able to get off to an early lead. The unfortunate thing for Canada was that they weren't able to get that early goal and then take that momentum and use it and run it through the rest of the tournament, through the rest of the game. Whereas the U.S. scored first, and then Canada, like, what do we do now? Because we're down. And then the U.S. took that momentum and ran with it. Whereas like Canada wasn't able to gain that momentum early on, like they were against Russia and against Finland.
Yeah, well, they had the benefit of having that first goal in pretty much every single game, I think. Like, I think in every single game except for one of them, they scored the first goal within the first 5 minutes of the game. And then I think there was one game where they scored within like the first 8 minutes. So they're used to getting up to that early lead and then just relying on their goaltending and steady play to back them up till the end. I think you made a really good point when you said that U.S., you know, they had all their challenges against Sweden and Russia and everything, because Canada did have the benefit of an easy pool. And I think a lot of fans, including myself, had their rose-colored glasses on for this tournament when it came to Canada, because you obviously see them kick the shit out of Germany. You see them kick the shit out of Switzerland. Those two teams obviously didn't match up very well against Canada. But when you see Canada steamrolling these guys and just completely kicking their asses, and also like they hadn't lost a game up until that States game. So I think everyone really thought that Canada was a lot more prepared for it than they actually were in that sense.
Yeah, I agree.
And I will say also they looked amazing at times, but then other times they really looked like they were getting outworked by certain weaker teams. Like that Slovakia game is a glaring example. They beat Slovakia, but Slovakia was giving them a fucking hell of a time that whole tournament.
They were. Yeah, and it's kind of like a symptom of being, you know, like having too much talent on your team, and right, like where you, and I'm not saying that Canada, like, yes, they faced a little bit of adversity against Slovakia, but it was nothing that really scared them all that much. No. And the fact that Canada was just able to so easily like coast through the beginning of the tournament, I think the U.S. was able to catch them off guard and use that against them.
And it's looking like they've got the exact same tune heading into next year's tournament, because they've got, if I'm not mistaken, another pretty easy pool. I think it's the exact same as this year, except they've got the Czech Republic instead of Germany, I think. And then they've got Switzerland or Austria instead of Switzerland. Or maybe Slovakia. I'm not 100%. Either or.
Austria's going to get destroyed.
Yeah, those poor bastards. Maybe if they can.
Funny part about the Austrian team, they've got a goalie on Hockey DB listed at 5'6", and then you go over to his elite prospect page and he's 6 foot.
Weird.
I remember that.
Who do you believe? I would believe Elite Prospects, to be honest. But
yeah. Elite Prospects is the clear goat between them and Hockey DB.
Yeah.
So going back to our predictions in the first episode, we had you on a couple weeks ago. So we both had Canada winning gold, which obviously didn't happen. But ultimately, your prediction was closer to mine, because you had Canada in the finals against USA. Only difference is that you had Canada winning the gold medal.
I did.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was just gonna say my bracket was looking pretty good for a while there, but then like it wasn't perfect. It was far from perfect, but you know, I had like, you know, Sweden and Finland played each other in the quarterfinals, and that was a really close game. But had Sweden come out on top of that, I would have had the semifinalists all in the right position to then move on and potentially medal in my order. Unfortunately, then the U.S. beat Canada and Finland beat Russia, so that kind of fucked it up a little bit. But overall, it was like pretty close, you know.
Yeah, I think everything leading up to that in the bracket was bang on, so you can at least die on that hill. Now, I am like from the very beginning, I've been saying this, at least since the start of the tournament, my bracket would have been closer had Yaroslav Askarov not been shit again.
Yeah, he was poo.
And I feel bad saying that he was shit because he did have a couple good games. He did well against Finland in that bronze medal game, it was against Finland. Yeah, my bad. But everyone was expecting him to take such a massive step this year, and it just didn't happen.
There wasn't any particular game where Yaroslav Askarov actually managed to steal a game for Russia, which is what I thought he was going to be able to do. He was on his best nights, he was steady in net, and unfortunately, that's just not what Russia needed in order to be able to medal in this tournament. They needed, I was banking on Yaroslav Askarov as well to be the best the goalie in the tournament, and I thought that he was going to be the reason that Russia was going to be able to get really far and medal and potentially even run at Canada for the gold. But they never really were able to even get close, really, other than the fact that they were in the bronze medal game. I had 5-0.
I had Russia in the gold medal game against Canada simply because of Askarov. I thought that Canada was going to be the only team that was going to be able to solve him. But and the crazy thing too is that he's still eligible to come back next year. Yeah. With a goalie prospect this good in the league, you'd expect that he would be coming back and steamrolling every single year, but he's 0 for 2 so far. It's kind of rough to see.
Is Askarov actually going to return next year though? Because Pekka Rinne is getting older, right? So
I think he will. Yeah, it takes a while for goalies to be NHL ready, and the Predators have UC Saros, who's nice and young too, to take over the net for a while until Askarov's ready. So
UC Saros is right in that age window of he is what he is, but he still has room to grow, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like that Yaroslav Halak situation where Halak had one good year with the Habs, but then he actually became good in a glorified backup role when he was 30. So
yeah, exactly.
Because I think Saros is 28, 27. He's not young, but he's not old, right? Yeah. So
it's not
goalies until they're it sometimes takes goalies until they're 24 to make the league anyway. So you never really know.
Yeah, this isn't like NHL 13 GM mode where once they turn 27, their stars turn white and they're done growing. Yeah, whatever.
Exactly.
There's no set in stone prime. You can turn into a hell of a defender or a hell of a goaltender at any age. But he's definitely in that zone where there's still room for improvement. But he's not really getting any too much better at this point. But he's good enough. So moving on, I figured we'd run through each of the 10 teams and present an MVP for each team. So Lucas, following that tournament, let's start with Pool A. Who would you say is Canada's MVP at the tournament?
My pick for Canada's MVP is one that I was not even expecting to be in the conversation at the beginning of the tournament, but Devin Levi, the goalie. He had an absolutely stellar tournament. I didn't even expect him to get any minutes. I thought he was going to be the third goalie on the team because I thought Gauthier and Garland were a little bit more established than he was, but they ran with Levi, and boy was he impressive. He had an 0.75 goals against average and a 964 save percentage. That's one of the better goaltending performances we've seen in the tournament in a while. Had they won gold, I think Devin Levi would have gone down in history as one of the better goalies Canada's had throughout this tournament. He had 3 shutouts too. He was like a brick wall back there. So I think he was definitely, even in the gold medal game, he was also stellar. So I think he was their Canada's MVP, definitely. Yeah. I mean, shout out to Dylan Cousins, and who also was fantastic, but
Yeah, I mean, Devin Levi pretty much gave everything he could and everything Canada could have asked from him, and then some on top of that.
Yeah.
So it was, he definitely had a hell of a tournament. Mark, did you have an MVP for Canada?
Okay, so here's the thing. I definitely see where you guys are coming from with Levi. And he did well when called upon. He did really well. He did his job. But when you're the goalie of Canada, you don't have a lot of work to do. right? So it's hard to justify an MVP case for Devin Levi. He did well. He did very well. I'm not saying anything bad about him, but I'm saying my MVP has to be Cousins. The guy was he showed up. Unfortunately, he didn't produce in the gold medal game. And yeah, you need goals to win. And 2-0 is a good enough. Like if you get scored on twice, you should be able to still have a chance at winning the game. So yeah, Devin Levi gave his team a chance to win every single game, in which they won every single one, but the most important one. But Dylan Cousins was the leader on offense. He had the most important job after Doc and Lafreniere weren't there for the team, right? So you see the job that Cousins did. He provided the offense. He was this big presence on the ice, and every single team had to take note whenever Cousins was on the ice. They had to make sure that they had him covered, that they were trying to defend him. The States did a really good job at boxing everybody out. And yeah, unfortunately, Cousins couldn't produce anything for that game, but he has to be the MVP for Canada. He had the most important job and he delivered.
Yeah, in my case, I didn't want to pick a true MVP because for me, it was definitely a 1-1B kind of situation. Like I wouldn't call either of these guys second place, but I ended up going with Cousins too, just because after Doc was announced that he was going to miss the tournament, there wasn't really that much of a concern for Canada on offense, but I will say Dylan Cousins fucking stepped it up to the highest degree anyone ever could. Like he's now 5th in all-time scoring for Team Canada at the World Juniors. And I think Devin Levi was incredible. And like I said, I'd give him a 1B because I think that had he shit the bed in half those games he played, Canada, who knows, maybe Canada wouldn't have even made it past the semifinal. But he wasn't they were both incredible, but I had to give it to Cousins just because of how electrifying he was up front after Doc was announced that he was going to miss the tournament. So moving on, Team Finland. Lucas, did you have an MVP for Team Finland?
Yeah, so I went with Topi Niemela, who was also named the defenseman of the tournament. He had 2 goals and 6 assists for 8 points, I believe, over the course of the tournament. He was the best defenseman in the tournament, and he was Finland's obviously, I think their MVP, their most important player. He was out there for all the big situations, played the power play, the penalty kill. And again, I'll give a little shout out to Anton Lundell as well, who was fantastic on offense. But I think Topi Niemela was their best player in the tournament.
Mark, you're muted, bud. There we go.
Sorry. You know what? I'd have to go with Anton Lundell. He was probably Finland's best player from start to finish. And a little known stat, he won 70% of his faceoffs for the tournament. So he dominated the draw. He was out there for offense. He was out there for the penalty kill. He led the team. He was the big presence on the ice. Just like Cousins, teams had to take note when Anton Lundell was on the ice because he's not only a skilled presence, but he's a physical presence as well. He's in on the forecheck. He's helping the defense. He's helping the team win games, getting those pucks, getting into those puck battles. He was a big presence. He was dominant. A very good player.
Yeah, so I'm on your side for this one, Lucas, and you can call me the biased Leaf fan all you want, but yeah.
Homer, bias!
Niemela was definitely Finland's MVP for me. I fully expected, going into that tournament, him to be second fiddle on the back end to Ville Heinola, but Niemela was pretty much their quarterback the entire time on the power play. He really excels. One thing I noticed is he really excels at putting shots through traffic, and that was how he got most of his points. He'd be the power play quarterback. He'd fire one through and it would go through 6 guys, but it would find its way to the net. And when you're named top defenseman at the tournament, it's kind of hard not to give him the MVP.
Dude, it's a serious honor because since 2008, I think Ryan Ellis, Drew Doughty, some serious defensemen have been named top defenseman of the year. It's a no joke award. It's legit.
Yeah, the only one I think that didn't make have a notable NHL career out of it was Brandon Gormley.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on, Team Germany. I mean, truthfully, we could have listed an entire line for this one, but Lucas, who was your MVP for Germany?
Tim Stützle. He was named top forward at the tournament for a reason. He was absolutely fantastic. he had 5 goals, 5 assists for 10 points in 5 games. He was he was every time he was out there on the ice, and you can argue that the other guys on his line, which were Florian Elias and John Jason Peterka, they would not have had even remotely as close to as good of a tournament as they did had Tim Stützle not been on their line as well. I think Tim Stützle was one of the most dynamic players in the tournament, and he almost got his team past Russia in the quarterfinals. It's interesting to think about with Germany is whether or not, had they had guys like Moritz Seider and Lukas Reichel there, would that be the difference between 1 goal against Russia? And would Germany have been able to actually find their way into the semifinals and maybe even medal it in the tournament had they had those players? Interesting to think about. But Tim Stützle, hands down, Germany's MVP.
Could you imagine if Germany pulled off an upset against Russia in the semifinals?
They were close.
Honestly,
would have been awesome.
Not out of the question next year, especially if the Sens somehow release Stützle for the tournament. Mark, I sort of fucking got, if you say anyone besides Tim Stützle, I'm going to punch you through the screen.
Yeah, come on down here into Burlington and punch me through the screen. I dare you.
Right. That's what I'm doing. So who's your MVP? Stützle?
Yeah, you know what? It's got to be Stützle. Like, no, and right. I really don't like agreeing with the group, but like, you got to give credit where it's due. You just have to sometimes. And when a forward averages 25 minutes a night for the entire tournament, like, that's serious, right? Like, 25 minutes for any player is a lot of minutes. And Stützle had everything to do. Like, he was up against Russia, he was up against Finland, like, or was he playing against Finland? Yeah, he played against Finland. Like, up against Canada. Yeah, he was there for Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
every game. The
guy, he's a special player, and Ottawa's got a special player on their hands. And it's going to be interesting to see how he pans out. And Germany, especially as a country, they're on the rise. They've got the population. They've got the money. They're going to be a powerhouse country for hockey. I guarantee it. Stützle's the MVP.
You guys pretty much nailed every single point that I would have had to make. But yeah, Tim Stützle was my MVP too. It really says a lot that the Germs only made it to the quarterfinals, yet in the round robin scoring leaders, they had 3 of their players in the top 5.
Yeah, 3. That's insane, man. That's insane.
Third, fourth, and fifth only to Dylan Cousins and Trevor Zegras. Like, absolutely.
Part of the reason for that is because they had no scoring depth, so every single goal they scored was those 3 guys. But still, that doesn't take anything away from those guys. So.
No, absolutely not. Like, you can't really fake 10 points in 5 games in the tournament.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on in Pool A, Slovakia. Lucas, do you have an MVP?
Yeah, I'm picking another goalie here. I've got Simon Lukowski for the Slovaks. If you look at the way that any game that Slovakia won, so i.e. against Switzerland when they won 1-0, or even when they lost 4-1 to Canada, anytime the Slovaks were able to come close to actually being able to upset a team or win a game or be able to put something together in this tournament, it was always because of Simon Lukowski. He had a .261 goals against average and a .922 save percentage. If you look at those stats, that puts him 3rd among all goalies in the tournament. I think, and if you look at the rest of the Slovak roster, there wasn't really anyone else that really stood out as being significantly important to the Slovakia's success or lack thereof. So I think Simon Lukowski, hands down, is their MVP.
Mark?
Now, okay, so what's his name? Lukowski?
Simon Lukowski.
Lukowski, I believe that's how you say it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he had the thankless job of trying to stop the oncoming forces of some notable countries, right? But I'd have to say the MVP for Slovakia is Simon Nemec. I think that's it. Nemec, probably Simon Nemec. 16 years old, defenseman. He's 6 foot, 4 points in 5 games. 16 years old. That's legit. He led Slovakia's team in points. So I don't know. It's got to be Simon Nemec for me. Like Lukowski, he did a good job, but when you have to try and lead the team on all over the ice, defensively and offensively, and you're 16 years old and you can lead your team in points, that's significant. That's serious. So I have to say Simon Nemec.
Mark Vanderluck hates goalies, confirmed.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Nemec would have been my guy if Lukovsky didn't exist, and he was definitely my pick for MVP as well. He kept Slovakia in it for most of their games, and it's just, again, one of those situations. Slovakia is one of those countries that really relies heavily on their goaltending. If you remember, you look back to 2015 with Dennis Godla, same concept then. He was obviously, it made much more of an impact than Lukovsky did, but either way, it's the same sort of situation.
Well, and my issue, sorry to cut you off, but my issue with Lukovsky, though, is like he had a few good games, and yeah, he kept it closer than he should have against the other countries, but like it wasn't as compelling as who's that goalie that you said?
Godla? No, I know. I wasn't making a comparison between their two tournaments. I'm just saying, like, Slovakia has a history of leaning on goalies.
Yeah,
and Godla's another good example of that.
Yep.
So
anytime Slovakia is good, it's always because their goalie keeps them in it, right?
Yeah. Especially recently, Slovakia has not done anything exciting. Moving on to the last place finisher in Pool A, Switzerland. Lucas, do you have an MVP for them?
So Switzerland was so underwhelming that it was almost like hard to like scrape out an MVP, but I'm going with another goalie, Thibaut Faton. He was fine for them. I mean, he kept them in it in the Slovakia game when they lost 1-0. So anytime Switzerland was able to sort of like stick around or hang around with some of these teams, like it was because he was able to stand on his head. He had a pretty decent save percentage, 909 save percentage and a 308 goals against average. Not numbers that jump off the page, but when you consider how many shots he was facing on such a weak Switzerland team in front of him, I think you'd have to say that he was the most impactful for any sort of success or whatever you want to call it for the Swiss this tournament.
Mark?
Yeah, you know what? I'd have to agree with that. I will cave and give my MVP to a goalie finally. Thank you very much. Not a big deal.
Hey, by the way, Lucas is a goalie in real life, so he takes all this personally. Every time you reject a goalie.
Lucas, you're a little biased, eh? Okay.
That's why I'm picking all the goalies, yeah.
He's a little biased. That's fine. That's okay. Nothing wrong with bias as long as you own it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, though, is like, there wasn't a whole lot going right with Switzerland, to be straightforward with it. Like they didn't really have a whole lot going. Yeah. They got slapped around by Canada. They didn't really show a whole lot of life. They really did not look good. Like Germany, when Germany played against Canada, they just couldn't help it. Right, because they had 9 guys missing. You can't look good when you have 14 against 23. You just can't, right? So like with Switzerland, they actually look bad. I don't know. It's hard to give them an MVP when they just didn't do anything inspiring. I don't know.
Yeah. So I was covering the Swiss this year for the Hockey Writers all throughout the tournament, and I kind of went into these games feeling like a proud dad every time they did something well, because I spent all this time researching a country that I've never really looked that much into aside from Canada.
Hobson, so is your MVP Nando Edinburgher?
Nando Eggenberger has not been at the tournament for years now. That great name though. I can see why you plugged him. But anyways, yeah. So when the Swiss came out, anytime they did something good, I felt like a proud dad. But then at the end of the tournament, I felt more like a disappointed father, because there really wasn't much to write home about. And I predicted at the start that their inexperience would be their fallback. But I will agree with both of you and say their MVP was definitely Thibaut Faton or Faton. They were saying his name. Faton. Okay, Faton. Yeah, so I had it right the first time. But yeah, I mean, I predicted that their inexperience was going to be their downfall. And the major thing for me is I thought their goaltending was going to tie right into that, because they didn't have a single returning goalie. But Faton was good for what it's worth and good based on what his expectations were. I mean, he stopped 39 of 43 shots against Team Finland, and all those goals he let in against the Finns, where I think they lost 4-1, they all came on the power play. So it's not like they were all even strength goals. Like he had the odds stacked against him, and pretty much every other game he played in, he did respectable at the very least. And I think that's about all that the Swiss could have asked for from him. So I would definitely go with Faton as my MVP as well. I think a lot of their returning players, guys like Simon Canuck and Joel Salzgeber and Gaten Jobin, they were all a little bit underwhelming. I figured that they would probably put the offense on their back and give them something to hope for. But they were all very quiet at the tournament. So yeah, Fatone was the MVP without a doubt for me. So moving on to Pool B, USA. Lucas, who is your MVP? I feel like there's one answer and one answer wrong.
Oh yeah, I can't argue against the directorate voters here. Trevor Zegras. I mean, he was just one of the best World Junior performances we've seen at this tournament in a long time. He had 7 goals and 11 assists. That's just absolutely ridiculous. Trevor Zegras just absolutely put the Team USA on his back, and he's one of the biggest reasons why they were able to win gold.
That's pretty much
not much else to say. Like,
Mark, are you going to challenge the board of directors here or what?
No, he was the guy that was chirping Canada that they hadn't been challenged, right?
I'm not sure.
Was it Zegras? It was
someone on the States. Yeah, I don't remember who exactly
it was. Someone on the States
been...
that said like they hadn't faced a real goalie yet. So it's one of those things where if you can back it up, then you get like double respect, right? Because like he put his money where his mouth was. He showed up and he produced. He got points on both goals for the States, goal and assist, and he just showed up in the gold medal game when it matters most. So, and I believe he's a ninth, or not ninth. He's a prospect for the Ducks, right?
Ninth. You were right on ninth overall.
Ninth overall, yeah, ninth overall. Yeah. I was gonna say ninth prospect for some reason. Ninth overall pick for the Ducks. That's what I wanted to say. So the Ducks, they have a special play with that. Like when you have a guy who can show up in moments like that, that speaks to the confidence, the poise, the focus in a prospect that you have. And Zegras showed up. He showed up. So he's the USA's MVP.
And Zegras was really good last year too. So he's like one of the top, like he's like high in the all-time like scoring leaders of the World Juniors now, I think.
Yeah, he had a good tournament last year. He's pretty much just the States version of Dylan Cousins. Like their World Junior paths are pretty much identical. Yeah, you guys said pretty much everything. Same with the whole Stützle Germany thing. There's really nothing else I can say. The board of directors thought that Zegras was the MVP, so I'm not going to argue against them. He was clearly the MVP. He had a hell of a tournament, and the Ducks have a special prospect. So Russia, Lucas, who is your MVP since it's apparently not Askarov this year?
Definitely not Askarov. I think you guys and your listeners will be happy with this pick. I picked Rodion Amirov. He led Russia in scoring, and Russia surprisingly was a little bit underwhelming on offense this year. They didn't score that many goals, which is unusual for the Russian team. Usually they've got a high flying offense. Even guys like Podkolzin only had 2 goals and 2 assists. But Amirov, he scored 2 goals, 4 assists. He was their leading scorer. He was always seemed to be involved in a lot of their big plays. He was on their power play. For an underwhelming Russian team, Rodion Amirov is my MVP.
Mark?
Now, I'm going with the grain again, and I don't like it. But credit where it's due. Amirov was also I want to say the main reason why Russia snapped Sweden's 54-game streak in the preliminary round. So that's pretty it's pretty cool that he just shows up for a game like that, right? So you know that he's got some mettle and some grit in his game, right? So and he showed up the entire tournament though. Like he was always working hard. He was a good bro. He was a good blur. He was consistent. He tried hard. He worked hard.
Yeah.
So, and he, like, people say that he kind of looks like a Teuvo Teravainen. He reminds me a lot of Nylander. Like, it's just the way he skates. It's the way he moves the puck. It's just so, like, I'm watching Nylander again.
Yeah, I mean, TSN compared them to the Breadman when he was drafted. So if he's anything close to that substance, like
that's a bit of a reach. I don't like.
I know. I'm just saying, if he's anywhere close to that, I think fans will be happy.
Oh yeah, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Boys, we're going for the 3rd clean sweep in a row here. I'm agreeing with both of you. Amirov was their MVP. Russia was definitely underwhelming this year. I think a lot of it had to do with Askarov not living up to expectations, but also the fact that, like you said, Lucas, they didn't score too many goals this year. And that's not normally what you expect to see from Russia. So it was a little bit strange, but Amirov led their team in points. He did everything he could. And all this, I'm pretty sure he was in Larionov's doghouse for the first couple games because he wasn't getting a lot of ice time. But he came back firing in the third game and never looked back, and he led the team in points. So not much else you can say about him. So moving on to Sweden, Lucas, who is your MVP for them?
My Swedish MVP. This one was. I was also kind of like racking my brain a little bit to think of an MVP, because when you're talking about teams that underwhelm, it's hard to like pick an MVP for these guys. Just because, you know, if your team doesn't have a lot of success, then what really is the value in your impact on that failed success? But I picked Lucas Raymond just because I think that he was involved in a lot of Sweden's big plays, even if he wasn't scoring tons of goals. You know, he looked very talented out there, and he seemed to be able to sort of drive the play a lot, whether or not that play often would end up with the puck in the back of the net. You know, he seemed to be able to at least drive their offense in a way that other players on their team weren't able to do. He had 2 goals, 3 assists, so a little bit underwhelming. I kind of thought him and Alexander Holtz were going to be one of the better duos in the tournament, but they both were a little bit underwhelming. But I'm still going with Lucas Raymond just because of the way that he was able to sort of dictate play for Sweden on the ice.
Mark?
Now I'd have to go with Noel Gunler, because he got 4 goals in 5 games, and in a tournament like this, scoring is so much more important, because like you're just working against the time, right? Like every single game matters. Every single goal is that much more important, right? So when you look at the role that Noel Gunler did or had for Sweden, he wasn't the I don't know, like, you know what, like he was their MVP. He scored 4 goals in 5 games. He did what he was asked, and that's all that I can say about that. He was their MVP. Showed up, 4 goals in 5 games. Like that's
yeah.
What do you want?
I agree with you on this one, Mark. I had Gunler as my MVP too, mostly because at the start of the tournament, I'm pretty sure I predicted that Alexander Holtz and Lucas Raymond were going to be one of the best scoring duos at the tournament. Raymond did well. Holtz did okay. I mean, Holtz only finished with 3 points in 5 games. Certainly not what I would have expected from him in that duo, but everyone was expecting Raymond and Holtz to be the guys for Sweden. But yeah, Gunler came out flying, and he's looking like a really nice pick for Carolina in the second round. Especially a team like Carolina that's absolutely loaded with defense prospects. Taking a forward like Gunler in the second round, they clearly struck gold with Sebastian Aho a couple years ago, and now they're looking to potentially do the same with Gunler. And he has an absolutely blistering shot. And another point that I want to make is, I can't remember if this was in our preview or if it was in the Pump Take Sports preview, but I remember saying that if I could pick one guy to fly under the radar for Team Sweden, it would be Simon Holmstrom. And he ended up finishing in the 4-way tie for first in scoring. He had 5 assists in 5 games. So I just want to inflate my head a little bit for that.
Point that out there, yeah.
Exactly. Just got to flex my victories when I can. Okay, so moving on, Czech Republic. Lucas, who do you have for an MVP?
I don't have much to say about this guy. Martin Lang, he had 3 goals, 1 assist. He led the Czechs in scoring. You know, for a team that was just a little bit hurting for goals, Martin Lang seemed to be able to come through for them, but not enough to get them past the quarterfinals. It was a classic Czech Republic tournament where they kind of, you know, finished 3rd or 4th in their pool and then flop out in the quarterfinals. But Martin Lang led their team in scoring. He looked pretty good out there. That's my Czech MVP.
Mark?
Now, I'd have to agree with that as well, because it's got to be disappointing for the Czech Republican team in terms of Jan Mysak. I'm sure they were expecting a little more from him. He got 3 points in 5 games, it's really underwhelming. And you'll probably say like, it's Czech Republic, he doesn't have a whole lot to work with. But when you're an NHL prospect, you should have the understanding of like, I got to show up. I'm the leader on this team now. I'm drafted, and I've got to be a leader on this team. So he just didn't do enough. But Martin Lang led the team in points, so it's got to be Lang. The defense wasn't great. They were a little choppy. They didn't do enough. The goaltending was really shaky. So some of the goals that they gave up, some of the puck handling was bad. So Yeah, it's Lang, or is it
It's Lang.
Long or
no,
Lang?
no, it's Lang.
It's Lang.
It's
Okay,
Martin
because I
Long.
think his dad played in the NHL for the Hawks, right?
Robert Lang. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's his
Is
dad.
it Robert Lang? Oh,
I know
think so.
Robert Lang, but I don't know if that's his dad or not for sure.
yeah.
Okay.
Neither do I. That could be. Who knows? Yeah, I'm with both of you guys. Another clean sweep here. Martin Lang, and
Yep.
you guys pretty much hit every point that I could have made. Czechs pretty much did exactly what I expected them to do. They usually have potential to be a decent hockey country, but I'm sorry if you're sharing a pool with the States, the Russians and the Swedes, you're coming fourth. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's just how it is. And the Czechs did everything they could. Martin Lang led the team in points, so you got to give him the MVP if anything. So, final team in Pool B, Austria. Lucas, who's your MVP?
I actually think this was one of my easier selections for the MVP of this entire tournament because Austria scored 1 goal the entire tournament. So it wasn't going to be a forward. And I'm basing this entire MVP case on one game, and that was the 4-0 loss to Sweden because Sebastian Hrenaschitz, is that how you say his name, the goalie?
Yeah, Hrenaschitz, yeah.
He was absolutely outstanding in that game, and he held them in it against one of the best teams in the tournament, and he gave Austria a chance to win. Obviously, they weren't able to pull it off because they couldn't score goals. But Sebastian Hrenaschitz was fantastic. He had 173 saves over the course of the tournament. He faced more shots than any other goalie by far, and he was able to maintain an .892 save percentage, considering that he had the Austrian defense in front of him. So honestly, hats off to Sebastian Hrenaschitz because he was able to hold his own when the rest of his team wasn't.
Mark?
It's I don't know. It's so like, yeah, he had the thankless job of trying to stop all that rubber, and like he held it together. But like when you're given an example of that game against Sweden, it's like, well, Sweden, they lost in the quarters. So, and yeah, they lost to Finland, but like they lost in the quarters. So they didn't really have a whole lot of teeth to their game. Sweden, they just didn't do enough for me. Like Sebastian, he did well. I'll give him credit on that, but it's hard for me to give him the MVP there. And here's the thing, like, were all of those shots quality shots? Were they high danger shots, right? Like, did he genuinely deserve that MVP recognition? And I think it'd have to be Senna Peters because he scored Austria's only goal. And goals in this tournament are the most important currency, right? You can't win if you don't score. And Senna Peters, he did hold it somewhat together for Austria, but I'd have to give it to Peters. He scored the only goal for Austria.
Okay, that's understandable. Having said that, Lucas, I'm definitely with you on this one. Sebastian Hrenaschitz, man. Oh my God. I mean, there's not too many things that are more challenging than trying to pick an MVP on a team whose final scores featured an 11-0 loss, a 4-0 loss, a 7-1 loss, and a 7-0 loss. It's kind of hard to pick an MVP for a team like that. And truthfully, I'm surprised that I'm not saying Marco Rossi. But
yeah, me too.
Like you said, the Austrians were held to 1 goal throughout the entire tournament, and Hrenaschitz was getting peppered every single game. I think it was like 65 shots one game, 60 shots another game, 50 shots another game, and either way, he's getting peppered, absolutely peppered with shots at this tournament, and 173 saves is simply inhumane.
Yeah, I just want to make a point in reference to Mark's point about Sweden. The thing that I disagree about with that is the fact that, yes, Sweden didn't go far in the tournament, but that doesn't mean that they're still not Sweden versus Austria. So the difference between those two teams just allowed Sweden to absolutely pepper them with shots. And the fact that he was able to hold that to just 4 goals. Like, if you listen to like the interviews that like the Austrian players were having, like at intermission, they were like dumbfounded by their goalie. They were like, holy shit. Like, Sebastian is like holding us in this game. And it was like a really impressive story. But in other games, Sebastian Hrenaschitz wasn't as good. So like sometimes he was letting in like 10 goals a game, but it was just a couple times where he was able to like really like hold his own there. And
yes. Sweden didn't necessarily stack up against the other major hockey countries like we would have expected, but their worst forward would have been Austria's best forward by a mile.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's that much of a talent gap between those.
Well,
two teams.
not Marco Rossi. But.
Okay, yeah, sorry, not Marco Rossi, but just about anybody else.
Mm-hmm. But Marco Rossi was disappointing. I didn't even consider him for the MVP pick. Not even consideration.
Yeah, I didn't hear his name once. I don't think throughout that entire. I mean, maybe except for the previews and the replays in the tournament where they're talking about Rossi, the 8th overall or 9th overall pick. I think it was for Minnesota.
Yeah, it's Minnesota.
But yeah, I knew it was Minnesota. I just couldn't remember.
It was the 9th
pick it was. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that wraps it up for the MVPs. Now, for the last topic I want to hit on here before we halt the World Junior discussion, we brought up a question last time we had you on here, Lucas, where we were talking about whether or not the quality of hockey would differ this year because of the CHL not being in action. Now that we're here, do you think there was any sort of difference, any noticeable difference in the quality of hockey with no CHL hockey being played this year?
So in regards to the CHL itself being canceled, the answer to that question is no. And the reason for that is I think when we were talking about that on the podcast, we were saying the success of the North American teams will dictate whether or not the CHL season being canceled is going to really impact the game, because all of the European guys are still able to play in Europe, but because the CHL is canceled, that's most of the players on Canada and some of them on US as well. So if those teams were extremely underwhelming, then I would consider that maybe, that was impactful of the on ice product. But we saw Canada and the US were just the two best teams in this tournament, I think, by far. So I don't think that impacted it at all. One thing that did impact it though is like the whole COVID thing that led to the CHL being canceled did impact it in many ways, because, well, first of all, you see like a 16-2 drubbing against like a half of a German team because they were like all struck by COVID and they had to quarantine. And also I think the COVID element as well made for it to be a lot tougher of a tournament mentally for some of these teams. Like if you watched the way, like when teams got eliminated in the quarterfinals or in the semifinals, like there was a lot of emotion coming out of those players after the game, and a lot of that was because of the fact that they had to be in this bubble as like 16-year-old kids. Sometimes they had to be in this bubble away from their families over Christmas for like, was it like a month and a half that they had to be in the bubble? So
something like that, yeah.
You know, if anything, I think maybe like it led to some of them playing with a little more heart and a little bit more passion because they wanted to make the most out of a shitty situation. But in terms of the CHL being canceled, I didn't see any evidence of that impacting the on ice product at all.
Yeah, so the conclusion we come to there is that the CHL itself didn't cause any sort of noticeable impact, but just the circumstances of the tournament in general with COVID and being away from your families definitely made a difference.
Yeah,
I don't think you would have seen Canada stomp Germany 16-2 any other year.
No.
Mark, anything to say?
No, and I agree with that as well. And like you look at Canada and USA, like they're still incredible hockey countries, right? And these programs are picking the best prospects across their nation, right? Like Dylan Cousins is Dylan Cousins, Bowen Byram is Bowen Byram, right? Like they're incredible prospects who have great skills, and they've been training up until this point, so they're physically there. But yeah, sure, they don't have like the game speed or that rhythm that we all talk about, right? But they're still physically fit. So as soon as they get just a little bit of rhythm, it's over for any other country, because Canada and USA will forever dominate hockey. Like Russia will be Russia, Sweden will be Sweden, Finland will be Finland. Pound for pound, Finland is at the top of the heap in terms of hockey talent production, but it's Canada and USA. They'll always dominate hockey no matter what, no matter where, no matter when.
Right on. Well, with that pretty much ends our World Junior discussion here. Lucas, do you have any closing thoughts here?
Not really. Unfortunately, Canada didn't get to pull off the gold medal, but you know what? Kudos and congrats to the US. They played a fantastic tournament. Their performance in the gold medal game was essentially perfect. Spencer Knight hats off to him. He played absolutely outstanding, and the entire team just absolutely played this really tight defensive game that just smothered Canada's offense. So hats off to them. I would have loved to see Canada win, but you know what? The U.S. deserved it.
All right, already counting down the days to next year's tournament.
Yeah.
So, Lucas, again, thanks a lot for coming on to the Shanaclan podcast, your second appearance. This is Lucas Tanner of the Pump Take Sports podcast. You can find him on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, or Twitter. Is it Twitter? Yeah, it's Twitter. My bad.
Yeah.
Fuck. Don't ever hire me to promo your shit.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, boys. It's always a pleasure to be on the Shanaclan podcast. See you later.
Absolutely. Take it easy, Lucas.
See you, buddy. All
right. Well, that was World Junior aficionado Lucas Tanner, international hockey expert. Now you're stuck looking at an enlarged version of Mark and I's fucking ugly faces. Now that Lucas is gone, we're a lot bigger in front of you now. So
please don't go.
Hopefully, yeah. Please do not go. We are severely depressed without you guys.
Yeah, actually.
Okay, so Mark, the fucking NHL season is here in 3 days, buddy. 3 days. We just watched 2 weeks of World Junior hockey. We had a nice 10-day break in between, and now we're right back into NHL hockey. So,
and the biggest sign of hockey being back is the fantasy drafts.
Oh, buddy, I'm in like 4 fantasy leagues this year. Every year,
we've got one at 9, eh?
Oh fuck! I completely forgot about that. I should probably hop in.
We can honestly. How about this? We do a fantasy we do a fantasy draft on the show. How
Sure.
about that?
I mean, we'll probably be all wrapped up by the time or before the fantasy draft finishes. But yeah, we'll let it run out.
Yeah.
Live on air for the rest of this show. I have a bad problem with overcommitting to fantasy leagues every year because I just love the idea of fantasy hockey. So every time someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, I've got a fantasy league. Do you want to join?" I always jump at it and I say, "Fuck yeah, I love fantasy leagues. I love fantasy hockey. Take my money." And then they start to pile up, and then I realize, shit, I'm literally out $120 on fantasy leagues this year. I'm in 4. I think as it stands right now, I'm in 4 leagues. I had to reject someone who asked me the other day because I'm like, man, I love my fantasy hockey, but I don't love it enough to be out $100. I'm in college.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I think I'm in 4 right now.
Yeah, I think I'm in 4 as well.
Yeah, I'm in 4.
So,
I'm in 4.
Nice. All right. Well, here's hoping that both of us, except for the leagues that we're both in, come away with at the bare minimum as much money as we put in to these.
I find I've got a bad habit of having similar teams across all of my leagues, right? Because it just seems like I'll have Jake Gensel in all 4 teams. I'll have Malkin in all 4 teams. I'll have like Hellebuck in 3 of the 4. Yeah. It's like, what am I doing?
I often don't find that issue because it seems like every draft I'm in, I'm picking somewhere completely different. Right. And so my league that I'm in with my buddies from high school is the one that I usually pay the most attention to. And I have this fucking problem where every single year my pick is either right at the start of the round or at the end of the round. And I can't stand that. Like I want to have a pick in the middle. I don't want to wait 14 picks before I pick again. Right.
You see, there's a lot of waiting with that one, and it sucks. I totally agree with the waiting part. But here's the thing: you can really benefit on a scavenger by being at the end of the round by like seeing who falls through the cracks, and it's like, boing, yeah, I'll take that guy, and then I get to wait a little bit and just. But the one issue though is that you have to bank on people actually being in the draft. You can't be like, please don't auto draft. Please don't auto draft. Right?
No, I got lucky today. No one was auto drafting, and I was actually going to tie into that and say that I really maximized on my back-to-back picks today. Like I somehow there were 21 rounds in the draft, and somehow I got Evgeny Kuznetsov in like the 15th round. I don't know how the hell he slipped so far. ESPN's rankings are fucked. 8.
Oh, okay.
We had 8 teams. So, yeah. Anyways, so moving on. There hasn't been too much NHL news in the past week or so. At least nothing aside from the obvious, division, the sponsor division names being announced. But it was announced a couple days ago that the Dallas Stars had, I think it was something like 6 or 8 positive COVID tests between their management. Yeah, it was 6 players and 2 management. That's what it was, or 2 coaching staff. So I got to ask you here, Mark. How in the fuck is the NHL going to change the Stars schedule on the fly? Because here's the thing. I'm at a loss of words on this one. Because if you recall in Major League Baseball, the Phillies and the Cardinals both had some positive COVID tests to start the year. But for them, it was a little bit easier to fix their schedule and work around that ahead of time because they have the advantage of being able to do a doubleheader. You can't do a doubleheader in the NHL. So I don't know. Like, what do you think? No, you shouldn't. And it certainly won't happen. I don't think guys are built to play 120 minutes of hockey a night, especially when they've got back-to-back games. So, Mark, what do you think the NHL is going to do about the Stars? Like, how are they going to reschedule those games?
The way I see it, though, is like the only way to actually get those double headers is to actually increase the roster size. So then you can get a more AHL heavy lineup, right? So
yeah.
That's the one way I see, like, if the NHL were willing to do that. They've got the taxi squad, but that's just not enough, right? Like, you can't just say, okay, so Crosby, you're out. Let's get Ted Pfluger in. And it's just like, who the shit is that guy now?
Buzz Flippett and Mark Dunk.
Yeah, Buzz Flippett, Mark Dunk, and Ted Pfluger.
Those guys are both going to put up 30 goals alongside of Sidney Crosby this year when their normal forwards go down with injury. Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep tabs on that and see what the Stars do to adapt. Well, not the Stars, I guess. It's not really their fault, but what the NHL is going to do to adapt to that. So with the season starting in 3 days, Mark, let's move on to some NHL predictions. So who do you think is going to win the Scotiabank North Division?
I don't want to show my bias, but I'm gonna out myself.
Mark.
Bias. I'm gonna be biased. It's gonna be the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like Dubas understands that Toronto needs to be rounded out for their roster for the playoffs. He just decided not to stick it to the team last year because the Toronto Maple Leafs did not deserve to be a complete roster last year because they threw a hissy fit about their terrible coach. And it's like, sometimes you just got to get past that. But this year, we've got Jumbo Joe in probably his final year in the NHL. And I pray to the hockey gods that Toronto finally gets it through their skull. No more dicking around. We cannot screw this man's career over by screwing up in the first round repeatedly, because Jumbo Joe literally went out of his way to sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team that is notorious for fucking the bed. Not shitting the bed, not pissing the bed, fucking the bed. Dry hump, no lube, fucking the bed. It's absolutely embarrassing sometimes. And this guy sabotages his career. No, actually, that's Spezza that does that. Spezza friggin' sabotaged his career to fulfill a childhood fantasy to win the cup with the Leafs. And it's like, dude, do you not see what has gone on for the past 50 effing years? You moron. I love you, but what the hell? Sign with Pittsburgh. Sign with Washington. Sign with whoever but us.
Well,
save yourself the heartache and sign with someone else. I appreciate you. I love you, but fuck you. The
thing is, though, these guys they're signing with Toronto partly because of the dream of winning a cup with the Leafs, their childhood team, right?
And so that's the special thing, right? So I don't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, you know what? If we're going back to our predictions, I will actually go on the record and say that I had Edmonton originally winning the division. But two things affected that decision. So I originally thought that Edmonton was going to win the division because they outscored Toronto in points last year, just by 1 point. And I figured that with the addition of Tyson Barrie and having him potentially get back to his full form and having him slot in on that top power play unit like he was used to in Colorado and dishing the puck to Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, I thought Edmonton was going to have enough to not win the division by a landslide, but definitely win the division and beat Toronto for that spot. And on top of that, I have this whole theory where the Toronto Maple Leafs are sort of digressing as a regular season team because they lost 40 goals combined between Kapanen and Johnson over a full season, but they're improving as a playoff team. by adding those sandpaper guys like Wayne Simmonds and Jumbo Joe and Zach Bogosian and guys who aren't going to stand for, running around the ice with their fucking heads cut off like chickens. But having said that, I think with the Oilers losing Oscar Klefbom on the defensive core, that is a massive blow for them. And I truthfully just think that the loss of Klefbom and then the addition of the guys the Leafs made, like the guys the Leafs brought in over the summer, or I guess not over the summer, over the month of October. I truthfully think that the Leafs have what it takes this year to win the division. I think the Oilers losing Klefbom is going to be a big fall for them, but I think they've got what it takes.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like seeing Puljujärvi come back over from Finland too is going to be something to keep an eye on, right? Like the lack of offensive depth has always been an issue in Edmonton. And that to me is so weird. Like, yeah, sure, McDavid and Draisaitl make up for like 5 players on their own in terms of offensive production, but that still doesn't mean that you're off the hook in terms of helping them, right? Like you still, they're human, right? They'll make mistakes. They'll slip up. They need that support to help them get through those dog days of the summer. In this case, the summer, right? So like, yeah, it's weird seeing a team not supplement them with depth, because like if you help McDavid, you're making yourself better. Right. So like, yeah, Tyler Ennis is like, he's an addition, but he's not going to do a whole lot because he's Tyler Ennis. Jesse Puljujärvi.
Do not disrespect Big Penis Ennis, okay? Enough of that. And
like,
I will not tolerate any Tyler Ennis slander on this podcast. He does his job.
But like, you know what I mean though, right?
No,
like,
I get what you're saying. Yeah. All right, moving on. Who is your prediction to win the Mass Mutual East Division?
Now, here's where it gets a little funky chicken, because like it looks like it's a Metro division mixed with the
Atlantic. That's exactly what it is. That's right? Exactly what it is.
Like that's what it is. So like you'd think, oh, Tampa's in there. No, they're in the Central Division this time. But I don't know. Like Boston, they've lost some significant players, and then Matt Grizzlechick. Is it Grizzlechick?
Grizzly.
Grizzlick?
It's literally, just Matt Grizzlick. Yeah.
Grizzlick. Okay.
Grizzlick.
Like he'll step into Chara's role, but he's obviously not Chara. No, he's going to step into Krug's role, and he's not Krug. He's simply not Krug. No. So in terms of fantasy, sure, yeah, Matt Grizzlick.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Matt Grizzlick.
Mark had a stroke that affected the part of his brain that knows how to say Matt Grizzlick.
No. Like, and if you bet against the New York Islanders, you're making the biggest mistake of your life somehow. I don't get that. I'll say Washington, because Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Tom Wilson, right? Like Ovechkin's Ovechkin. He's just money in the bank. Kuznetsov is Kuznetsov.
They added Chara too. Don't forget.
Like, well, Chara is whatever. But
yeah,
like,
Chara is whatever, but he is still Chara. Like
he's still Chara. He's got the chicken wing, but like John Carlson is still good. And then Ilya Samsonov, whatever it is, he's a good goalie. So I'd have to go with Washington, because Pittsburgh, Malkin is on the wrong side of 30. Yeah, Ovechkin's on the wrong side of 30, and so is Backstrom. But like, I don't know, there's just not good enough depth on Pittsburgh to make me buy their hype. Philadelphia is a really good team, so I wouldn't be surprised if they get to that first spot, because Carter Hart is phenomenal. Claude Giroux is great, and then Sean Couturier is suddenly their number one centerman. They've got some solid defense, but my pick remains it's going to be Washington. What about you, though?
I mean, you pretty much said everything I was going to say. I hate to be agreeing with you constantly, because I know you don't like that, but Washington, yeah. I mean, for me, it was down to Philadelphia and Washington to finish first in the East Division, and I think ultimately Washington's going to have the edge, because we're going to be getting a full season out of Ilya Samsonov, who I think is a phenomenal young goalie. And obviously Carter Hart is too, but the only difference is that Carter Hart's going to have Claude Giroux, Jacob Voracek, Travis Konechny in front of him, whereas Samsonov's going to have Alex Ovechkin, Nicholas Backstrom, Evgeny Kuznetsov, Jacob Vrana, right?
Yeah, Jacob Vrana. That's another guy. Dude,
Yeah.
that's another guy. That's another guy. He's going to be a good one. He's going to take another step forward this year.
He single-handedly helped my fantasy team last year towards the end of the season.
He scores that one hat trick.
Yeah. But yeah, Washington Capitals, I think, are definitely going to come out on top in the East Division. Now, moving on to the, let me just get the sponsor right here, the Discover Central Division. Wow, hold on. Let me try that again. That was butcher of the English language. The Central, okay.
Whoa.
Hold up.
You're the one with the stroke.
I know. I promise you I can feel both sides of my body. The Discover Central Division is what I was trying to say. This is going to be the most intriguing division for me to watch this year because it's the first time in recent memory anyways, we've seen a division that is a perfect mix of Western teams and Eastern teams. We're going to have regular season games between Dallas and Detroit, between Nashville and Tampa Bay, between Carolina and Chicago.
The good old days again.
Honestly, this is going to be exciting to keep tabs on because a lot of these guys or a lot of these teams don't have that much experience against each other. And honestly, having the two cup finalists from last year in the same is we could only ask for. So anyways, Mark, who is your pick to win the Central?
Now it's weird though, because like you look at Dallas and like they didn't really change. And they're still the same team, but the issue is that Ben Bishop, he's coming back in March, so that obviously plays a role with the back-to-backs and like the long nights and the travel for Dallas early on in the season, right? And like the COVID especially, like because Khudobin is coming late into the training camp. Is he coming late or is he missing it completely?
I'm not sure. I'm not going to pretend like I know the answer to that.
There's an issue with that as well, and I like it's hard to say. I think just for easy purposes, I'll go Tampa because they've got Vasilevsky, right? Braden Point, Victor Hedman, Andre Palat's a solid player. Well, but Kucherov's out for the season.
Oh yeah, that's right. Kucherov is out for the season. Yeah.
Right. So my pick will be Tampa. My pick is Tampa. That's an easy pick.
Yep. I would tend to agree with you on that one. I mean, I don't think there's really, if Tampa Bay has been a notoriously great regular season team in the past couple of years. Oh shit. It's my turn to draft in the mess. And I'm just going to go on record right now and say sixth overall, first pick in the Mets draft. I select Austin Matthews.
Oh, you diggity dog.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Anyways, I think Tampa Bay is definitely the choice to win the Central Division.
Yeah, that's a safe pick. Who's going to come last for you, though?
Who is going to come last? Well, I mean, I guess we should have been doing this for every division if we're going to start now. Last place, it's got to be Detroit. I don't see any team in that division finishing worse than Detroit. But either way, Tampa Bay, they've got Vasilevsky. They're a notoriously good regular season team. And I think even without Kucherov, they've got guys who can step up. And I don't really see the only teams I could really see contending for that top spot are Dallas and Carolina, and I don't think either of them have the star power to finish first in the division. So Tampa Bay remains my pick for the Central.
Yeah, honestly, that's pretty fair. That's pretty fair.
All right, so moving on to the final one, the Honda West Division. Shout out to my 05 Honda Civic.
Yeah, that beater.
All right. Who is your prediction to win the West?
Well, it's not going to be LA. It's not going to be Minnesota.
Thank you.
Not going to be Arizona. Not going to be Anaheim.
Some fucking steaming hot takes coming from Mark over here.
Not going to be San Jose.
Right.
So that leaves us with St. Louis, Vegas, and Colorado. So we look at the additions made by Vegas. They added Alex Pietrangelo, but they also had to give up Nate Schmidt for pennies on the dollar. So that immediately plays a role. Did they get better with that? Did they get worse with that? Chances are they probably got better because it's Alex Pietrangelo. He's a very good defenseman. What did they change on offense? Not a whole lot. They've still got Mark Stone. Max Pacioretty's a phenomenal power forward. William Karlsson is a very good centerman, but they also had to give up Peter Stastny for pennies on the dollar.
Bro, you didn't just say Peter Stastny, did you?
Or is it
Paul Stastny?
Sorry.
Peter Stastny has not played an NHL game since the early 2000s, I'm pretty sure.
No, dude, I think like since the 90s.
Probably
he's a part
the
of
90s.
he's,
Yeah, that makes
he's a
it
part
even
of the
worse.
3 Stasny brothers, Martin, Peter, and Yanni.
Yeah.
Okay,
was-
so
that was a
Paul
tough one,
Stasny.
Mark, I'm sorry.
Sorry. No,
okay.
that's funny. That's good stuff. Cut and post.
Right.
I'll say Colorado because Mac Dog, Rantanen, Bowen Byram, Cale Makar, right? Like, come on, you can't go against them. They're too good.
No. Yeah. I personally have Colorado finishing. Fuck, did we just list the same team for every single one? I should just say Vegas here just so there can be some difference.
Sure.
No,
Honestly,
no.
You
I'm
can
not
make
go-
a case for
I'm
Vegas.
not going to. I'm not going to. I'm making Colorado my pick. They were the ones right from the start. I think they improved, and because they added Brandon Stodd, who's going to round out that top 6 for them. They added Devin Taves, which is a hell of an acquisition by Sakic for only 2
Taves.
second-round picks. Is it
Devon
Devon?
Taves? I don't know.
I
think so.
I always thought
There's
it was
an
I
O
just-
in there.
There is an O in there, but I think you can still pronounce that like Devin. Either way.
True. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Colorado, I think, is going to win the West Division this year. They're going to be one of my most exciting teams to watch every year, especially just with the breakouts lately. Well, not lately, I guess it kind of goes back a couple years, but Mikko Rantanen has turned into one of the best wingers in the league. You've got Andre Burakovsky, who's all of a sudden a point-a-game player for them. You've got Kadri, who's back in his 30-goal scoring form. I see a lot of firepower from them, and I think they're going to finish at the top of the West Division. So we're just going to skip over the playoffs completely. We'll jump right to the Cup finals. So who do you think is going to be the 2021 Cup winner? Early pick.
Tampa. Why not?
Tampa.
Because like
All right.
Mikhail Sergachev is probably going to get better. Braden Point's going to take another step. Anthony Cirelli's going to take another step. And then they're going to get Kucherov for the playoffs. They've got Victor Hedman. They've got Vasilevsky, right? Like they've got and Stamkos, right? So like
Your turn to pick, Mark.
Oh, my pick. I'm going to take I think I got to go Svechnikov. No, you know what?
Do you get an extra 20 points if you do the Michigan?
Yes. Let's go Svech.
All right, smart.
Yeah.
So you said Tampa Bay, so now I'll disagree with you. I personally think the Cup winner this year is going to be none other than the Vegas Golden Knights. I think this year is Vegas's best opportunity to win the Cup, and I think, as some people have said, there's a bit of a new dynamic in the Vegas dressing room where it's George McPhee is clearly not afraid to trade guys to get better.
Yeah,
Like,
but here's the thing, though.
Let me finish.
Okay,
You can have a couple good seasons in Vegas, but if a better player comes around, George McPhee will trade you to get that better player. And Nate Schmidt is a glaring example of that. He has been nothing but serviceable and nothing but a great defenseman for Vegas over the past couple years. And yet they used him. They pretty much traded him for pennies so that they could make room to bring in a better version of him in Alex Pietrangelo. So I personally think that the entire rhetoric in the dressing room is just going to be, listen, McPhee just went out and got Alex Pietrangelo. We need to get the Cup here to save our fucking jobs. Because if we don't, McPhee's going to want to get better, and he doesn't care about anyone's feelings. And truthfully, I just think this year is their best opportunity to win the Cup, and I think they are going to come away the winners.
Now, here's the thing, though. Like, yeah, they've got some talent. They've got some good players on their team, but I'm not sold on the center depth, and that's what I believe is the key to winning a Cup, because like Boston, Chicago, LA, Tampa, right, and then St. Louis, you can all name a number one center on that team, right? Yeah. And then Washington's got a number one center, technically 1A, 1B, right? And then Toronto's going to be a Cup winner
Toronto's got 2 1As.
Like, we've got 2 1As. So that leads you to believe that, like, center depth should be what ultimately gets you that Cup. In Vegas, I'm not sold with Karlsson. I don't see it. Robin Lehner's a very good goalie. He can steal you a series. And then Alex Pietrangelo, very good defenseman, right? And then, like, Mark Stone is a warrior. Max Pacioretty is a big asshole on the ice. He's just a jerk, right? So, like,
I just want to interrupt you here to let you know that while I was on my Vegas tirade there, I accidentally auto-drafted a pick because I wasn't paying attention. So I took Elias Pettersson, which is okay. Like, I'll take him, but
that's a good pick.
I have 2 centers right off the bat, though. I usually like to switch things up and go with a goalie.
Dude,
my pick or something.
At the 23rd pick, Frederik Andersen was taken.
Yeah, I know that was my point. I wanted to take a goalie.
That's a little early though.
Maybe a bit.
Was
Anyways,
that you? You're not Captain Underpants.
No. It wasn't
okay.
me. My only two guys are Matthews and Pedersen right now.
Okay.
Anyways, moving on. Yeah, as if anybody gives a fuck about the fantasy draft that we're doing. Here. So if we're gonna move on, how about your Hart pick? Who do you think is gonna win MVP this year?
Last year it was Connor Hellebuck, right?
No, that he was the Vezina winner. Last year's Hart was Leon Draisaitl.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Hellebuck was a nominee, I believe, right?
I could. I'm not sure that he was, but.
Oh, okay. Well,
sure. Either way, he won the Vezina. Draisaitl won an MVP.
Look, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say it's gonna be Austin Matthews.
Fuck sakes, Mark. I picked Matthews too. Now we're looking like the two biased Leaf fans with the rose-colored glasses on.
Dude,
but
no.
Anyways, we have the same mindset. Go for it.
Here's what I'm saying though. Like Matthews is out for blood, and he eats Canadian teams. Besides Calgary, he eats Canadian teams alive. He genuinely loves the Canadian teams. Montreal and Ottawa, forget about it. He's gonna be absolutely tearing them to shreds, and I am here for it. I need that curl and drag snipe. I need that in my life again. I miss those so much. And here's the thing though, like Matthews, he lost 12 pounds. And that's not on accident, though, because he's going to be playing on the PK. He's going to be doing everything for Toronto. He's going to be sniping. He's going to be defending. He's going to be leading the charge. He's going to get physical. He's going to get grimy. He's leading the team. He's going to be their most valuable player. I'm all here for it, and he's going to be a dominant force. I think he's getting the Hart.
He's
going to be an animal.
I've got Matthews for the Hart, too. I think he's ready to take another gear this year. And over the course of a 56-game season, especially when there's less time for him to get injured, fuck his knee up again or his shoulder. I mean, he's in position to have an incredible season. And like I said, you can call me the biased Leaf fan, but they've got a completely different culture and mindset heading into this season. And they've generally, like you said, done very well against Canadian teams. And if the Leafs have a good season, and if they don't, fuck up and lose half their games because they stop skating after the first period, I personally think it's Matthews. It's his trophy to lose this year for sure. So moving on to the Norris. Do you have a pick for them?
Now it's so hard trying to predict the Norris because there's new players in that competition every single year. Like you look at Hedman's Hedman, Carlson is Carlson, John Carlson, not Eric, because Eric's leg is screwed up. You know what? I think Morgan Rielly. I'm a Leaf homer. I'm a Leaf homer this time. I'm a bit like, okay, so here's the thing. Disclaimer alert for the listeners right now. I'm so against Toronto awards, like Toronto players winning awards in the past. But this year it's like, you know what? This team's out for blood. They're out to prove something. They're out to change the narrative, quoted by Morgan Rielly. So here's the thing. A healthy Morgan Rielly with the supporting cast he's got, Matthews, Marner, Tavares on the power play and 5-on-5, Rielly's going to be firing on all cylinders. He's there to get better. He's going to be producing on everything for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think he's there to just be a big factor for the Leafs. I'm and that's a hot take too, because people are going to be like, oh, it's John Carlson. He's going to win it. No. Morgan Rielly has the same capabilities. He's got the same abilities. Morgan Rielly is an elite puck moving defenseman. And then he's physical too. He's got a big body. He can move bodies, right? The one lag in his game is the defensive awareness. And that literally just comes with time and experience. And I think that Morgan Rielly's going to take another step this year. He's going to be healthy. He's going to be motivated. The Leafs are going to be motivated. He's got the Norris.
All right. So I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here, and this is going to be a hot take because it's very, very rare you see a guy win the Norris the year after he wins the Calder. But my pick for Norris is Cale Makar.
Honestly, that can work too.
Consider that this guy was 21 years old last year, or 20 years old, either or, and he put up 50 points in 57 games for the Avalanche. And that was at, like I said, age 20 or age 21. He has potential to quickly become one of the best defensemen in the league. And like I said, I've got the Habs. Jesus. I've got the Avs finishing as one of the best teams of the league. I have them winning the West, winning the Honda West Division. So I think, honestly, if the Avs do as well as I think they're going to do this year, I think Cale Makar could finish with the Norris, especially when he's the quarterback on that first power play unit and he's feeding Nathan McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen all year long with Gabriel Landeskog in front of the net. I think Cale Makar I think he could win the Norris for sure. At least contend for it.
Yeah, I honestly, like, you can make a case for anybody. Like John Carlson, he's got Ovechkin, he's got Backstrom. Like, he's got his weapons on the PP, and then he's on the PK. He's playing all the time, right? So it's really up in the air. But yeah, like, Cale Makar's a good pick. I can't dispute that one.
No. All right, Vezina, who do you got?
You know what? Let's go Carter Hart. I think he's going to be a big factor for Philadelphia. Yeah,
right on.
Because, like, here's the thing, though. Like, the NHL has shown that it's not all about the stats and the wins and the losses. They understand that Connor Hellebuck was the heart and soul of Winnipeg. So the thing with Carter Hart, though, is he's going to take another step in development. He's playing behind a really solid team in Philadelphia. They made the playoffs, so they're a good team, and he's going to take another step in development. And that just shows you that, like, he's going to be that important for Philadelphia. He's going to be such a big piece for them defensively and just holding the fort down. I think, I think Carter Hart is he's got it in the bag. Kind of hot.
I don't know who, but someone just took Jacob Trouba 47th overall. Is that not a little bit early for Jacob Trouba?
Oh, that's early.
Yeah.
That is soon.
A little bit questionable. Anyways, again, moving on. So you don't let this fucking mess draft squeak into our
It is a mess. It is a mess.
Content. Yeah, it is a mess. It kind of lives up to the name. So for the Calder, or actually, I haven't even given my pick.
Yeah.
For the Vezina, I think I went with kind of like a cheater option here, just because he's one of the best goalies in the league, and it's easy to say he could win the Vezina. I think it's going to be Andrei Vasilevskiy this year, because if it's solely based on regular season performance, Andrei Vasilevskiy does not have that difficult of a division to work with this year. I mean, he doesn't have to worry. He doesn't have to worry about the Bruins this year. He doesn't have to worry about the Leafs. He doesn't have to worry about the Panthers potentially taking a step forward.
Like I said,
the only two teams that are really going to challenge the Lightning this year in that division, especially since they're only playing games within their division, are Carolina and Dallas. And I think it's Vasilevsky's trophy to lose this year.
It is a bit of a tongue twister, eh?
Vasilevskiy, yeah. Well, mainly just the way it was tying into that sentence. Vasilevsky's trophy to lose. Fuck. Okay. Anyways. Moving on, the Calder trophy. Who do you think's taking home the Calder this year?
Look, okay. Is it low hanging fruit to say Lafreniere? Is that low hanging fruit?
No, I wouldn't say so. Lafreniere though.
Lafreniere?
Pierre though, not Lafreniere.
Oh, okay.
Lafreniere.
Yeah, he's from Quebec, so I thought there'd be like an accent aigu on the before the R. Okay.
No.
Yeah, it's gonna be Lafreniere. Lafreniere,
yeah.
Lafreniere, because he's playing with Mika Zibanejad, he's playing with Artemi Panarin. He's gonna get the opportunities on the power play. He's gonna get the opportunities to play 5-on-5 with those big guns. Like, I don't know how you can bet against that.
No. I'm right with you on the Lafreniere thing. I mean, the Rangers, I think, could have a sneaky good team this year between having Lafreniere making his debut this year. Just the fact that they got the first overall pick in general is fucked.
Right.
It's completely fucked up.
Here's the thing, though, like, you can say Quentin Byfield, but I just don't think there's enough supporting cast to protect him. And Quentin Byfield is just a little too raw right now.
Yeah.
Because, like, once he fully forms, I gotta make my pick. Who do I go with? You know what? Screw it. I go Carey Price.
Wow.
Okay.
I took two. Wow.
Dude.
Both you and I fucked up. Or not fucked up, I guess. But as Leaf fans, we kind of went against everything we believe in, because I took Tuukka Rask.
Bro, I've got Vasilevskiy and Carey Price as my goalies.
Oh, that's filthy.
Mint. Okay, so anyways, getting back on track, Quentin Byfield is just a little too raw right now. He probably has higher potential than Alexis Lafreniere, but here's the thing. Lafreniere in the short term this season is going to have a better year.
Yeah, and you know what, the thing with Lafreniere too is The other two main contenders, I would say, for Rookie of the Year are Byfield and Stützle, which is easy to peg those three because of the top three picks from last year. But the thing is with both Stützle and Byfield is, like you said, they don't have as much of a supporting cast. And I know they're trying Lafreniere on the third line for the Rangers to start, but if he explodes like I think he's going to, and he eventually ends up on that top line with Mika Zibanejad and Artemi Panarin, I mean, the sky's the fucking limit for what Lafreniere can do this year.
Yeah, honestly, and like if that's it as well.
And like I said, I think the Rangers could be a sneaky good team this year. They've got Igor Shesterkin in net. And if he has a season like everyone thinks he's going to, he was incredible when he made his debut last year. So
he was so good. Yeah. He was so good. Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that kind of wraps up our predictions for the awards. Now let's move on to some more Leaf-centered talk. So if you're a fan of any other team and you listened up until this point, you can leave now because we're talking about the Leafs. I'm not.
No, please don't go. Please don't go.
Yeah, please don't go. I was joking. So let's just go by the major Leafs offseason additions one by one. TJ Brodie, what do you think about that? What do you think his season's going to be like?
Now it's hard to get a bit of a read on what he could do for the Leafs because like I've seen like he's just Jake Gardiner 2.0 and it's like
no, certainly not.
Look, I like Jake Gardiner, but he's not really what the Leafs need. But no. TJ Brodie's analytics are phenomenal. So in that sense, I like having players that average to have the puck more than the opposing team, right? Like you can't win without the puck sort of deal. He's a good defender. He's a really solid player. I like him. I like him a lot. And I hope he stays with Rielly. I really do. Cause like we were thinking, Tyson Barrie's going to play with Morgan Rielly when he's here. No, they're too similar. They need the puck. Like,
I was just going to say that the whole thing about playing with Morgan Rielly. I don't think there's any doubt that Morgan Rielly and TJ Brodie are going to play together this year. I know there were some rumblings early on saying, they could give Zach Bogosian a look with Rielly. But the thing is, everybody saw what TJ Brodie did when he was paired with Mark Giordano in Calgary. Now, I'm not going to say that TJ Brodie was the sole reason for Giordano's success, but you do notice that Giordano became what he was towards the twilight of his career. When at 34, 35 years old, he all of a sudden became this 60, 70 point defenseman. And I don't think it's any coincidence that right around the time he started being good was right around the time he started playing with TJ Brodie. So I personally think we see what Brodie did with Morgan Rielly. And I mean, I think you'll see a similar effect to what he did for Giordano with Morgan Rielly. I think those two are going to play really well together. And I think Brodie is a legitimate addition to that defensive core. He's going to make their defensive core much better.
Yeah, I completely agree in that sense because like Brodie will let Rielly do what Rielly does best, and that's hold the puck, right? Like you want your best players to be able to play like themselves when you add to that core. You don't want to take away from that skill set. You want that skill set to be enhanced, right? So I really like what Brodie can do. Hopefully he is a positive add for us because he's here for 4 years at $5 million. So you better make that contract work. Otherwise it could end up being costly.
Based on the way some guys are getting paid, like some defensemen are getting paid, I think $5 million a year for Brodie if he's at his peak and if he does what he does best and if we get the best version of him, I think that's a very valuable contract. Yeah. So moving on, Jimmy Vesey, what do you think about him? How do you think he's going to do this year?
Man, I think that it's such an underrated pick, and I was really confused and / a little angry by fans not liking the signing. He signed for $900K. What's there to lose? He signed for 1 year, and then he's going to be playing in the top 9 beside Kerfoot or Tavares or Matthews. Like, he's going to get those juicy minutes. He's going to get the Apple minutes. Like, there's no risk. There's only upside. And plus, he's a big body. The Leafs need bigger bodies, and he's motivated because this could be the final year he's in the NHL if this contract doesn't work out. And like anyone, I don't think he's going to be unmotivated to prove the doubters wrong. He's going to, like he said, he's going to come out onto the ice with his hair on fire. Like, you got to love that, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the most underrated signings of the offseason for the Leafs anyway, because they promised him a chance to start the season in the top six. He's been playing with John Tavares and William Nylander. And I think if he's in that role where he uses his size to get to the net and bank in rebounds and get those greasy goals, I mean, he's definitely over an 82-game season. I think you could put him up for 20 goals. And he obviously really hasn't lived up to his expectations as a Hobey Baker winner. Hobey Baker, not Hopi, my bad. But this year is as good a chance as any for him to rebound. And plus, he was in Buffalo last year. And Ryan O'Reilly straight up asked to be traded out of Buffalo because playing in Buffalo made him hate hockey.
Look at Robin Leonard, buddy.
Yeah, like I think he's definitely got a chance to rebound. He's going to be playing with a lot of really good players, and I think there is a legitimate chance that he ends up putting up over the course of a 57-game season or 56-game season, maybe 10 goals, maybe 15 goals, but I think that's all you can ask for him, especially at $900K. Now, moving on, what's your on the Wayne Simmonds signing? How does he shape up in the lineup?
Look, it's just another, like, it's like a culture. I don't want to say a culture signing, but he's going to be so good for what the Leafs need. There was too often in the last 5 years where the Leafs just look dead. They look so lifeless. And Wayne Simmonds, he won't let a single shift go by where he's not putting out. He's going to be working his ass off, and he's going to be trying to get the boys going, and he's going to do whatever it takes. And plus, I really like the idea of him being on the power play as a net front presence, because that's where he gets a lot of his goals. He loves scoring in the front of the net, and he's going to be super effective there.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you on that take for sure. And it's especially with Wayne Simmonds again, like for 1 year at $1.5 million, if he can finish the season with 5 to 10 goals and 20 points, I will consider it a success. His presence will be felt in the playoffs. Like he said, that he can score goals, but he's also not afraid to punch your face in. That's exactly the type of energy the Leafs need, and exactly what they didn't necessarily have with guys like Kapanen and Johnsson last year. I know Kapanen had a bit of a mean streak, and Johnsson wasn't bad either, but if you're losing 40 goals, you're definitely bringing in some sort of other valuable trait to have, right?
Yep.
And, the Leafs may be losing 40 goals, but they're bringing in that punch your face in mentality that Wayne Simmonds has. And like you said, him being net front on the power play, he will wreak havoc in front of that goal. He's a big boy. He's 6'3". Yep. So he is not going to be pushed out of the net front. He's not going to be pushed out of that role easily.
And look, that offensive presence is going to be covered by Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, Marner, Jumbo Joe, Jimmy Vesey, Ilya Mikheyev, right? Like Kerfoot. The Leafs are going to be fine offensively.
They don't need goals from Simmonds.
Exactly.
He's not the third or fourth best player like he was on Philadelphia a couple
years and he doesn't have to be, right? He's allowed to play his role.
All right, now moving on to what I would consider to be the final, I guess, quote unquote, big signing for the Leafs this offseason, Jumbo Joe. What do you got to say about this guy?
Dude, when Matthews scored that goal, it was Matthews, right? Like he was on the ice with Joe and Mitch.
Yep.
He's like a kid in a candy store. He was so happy for the guys when they scored. And he's going to be so great in the dressing room too, because he's been there. He's been to the Cup final, right? Unfortunately, he doesn't have that cup, but I think he's going to be so good for the culture and for the leadership on the team. He's still a voice in the room, but he still allows Tavares to do his role.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't know if anyone listening has an Athletic subscription, but there is an incredible Joshua Cloak wrote on Joe Thornton. It was basically a collection of stories from guys that Joe Thornton's played with over the years, people who have coached him. I think there was even a couple stories from equipment managers from teams he's been on, just guys sharing stories about Jumbo Joe. And after reading that article, I am about 100 times more excited for Joe Thornton to put on the Leafs jersey.
Oh, he's a great personality, man.
He's a great person too. I will be the first to admit that I wasn't on board with it right away because I had no idea where he was going to play. The Leafs have so many guys
first line winger,
for a roster spot. Yeah, I certainly wasn't expecting the first line winger thing. But having said that, around the time when the rumors were circulating that Joe Thornton might sign in Toronto, I was still reading tweets about how Joey Andersen was going to be given a legitimate chance to compete for a regular spot on the team. And I'm like, we literally have like 15, 16 NHL forwards. So, how is this going to work? But after reading that article and after just reading into it a little bit more, having Jumbo Joe there is going to do so much because like you said, he's in what might be his last year in the NHL. He is not going to settle for a first-round loss. He came to Toronto for a reason. So,
yeah,
I agree with you there.
I got to just clarify for a sec there for the awkwardness on the screen. My parents just got home from the cottage. So anyways, Jumbo Joe, he's going to be good for the culture. And I'm really pumped to see how he does for the Leafs and also how long he stays on that line with Matthews and Marner. Like he's an elite passer and we know what he's done in his career. And I'm curious to see the effect that he has with Matthews and Marner. I don't know if that's just a facade by Keefe. It's like, it's just preseason or it's just training camp. Who cares? Hyman will be back on that line on Wednesday. Let's just do this while we can.
You know, if Hyman didn't do so well in that role of top line left wing with Matthews and one of Nylander or Marner, then I would be an advocate for Joe Thornton staying on that top line all year, as long as he's holding his own. But just because of the fact that Hyman does so well on that top line, I don't know how long Jumbo's going to last on the first line left wing, but it is coming out and it is starting to be known that his legs aren't as slow as people might think. You know, he's older and he doesn't have the speed of, the 22-year-old Matthews and the 23-year-old Marner.
Right.
But he can still skate. So like he's not dead at this point. Like he's 41 years old, sure, but he still has the legs to keep up. So I think it'll work for a couple games, but I'm not sure how long it's going to last. So moving on, I want to get your take on Mikko Lehtonen. Just talk about Mikko Lehtonen, because I guess that could be considered a free agent signing, but not in the same class as the other ones because he's never played an NHL game before. So let's get your take on it.
Now, okay. You can't deny skill, you can't deny ability, and you can't deny what he could bring to the Leafs is that puck-moving offensive panache, right? But here's the thing is he's never played a single game on North American ice. He's played his entire career in Europe. So that's all he knows for that type of pace, that type of physicality. It's a different game in Europe as it is to America and Canada. Like I like the idea of having him in a sheltered role, getting those easy points, having him play with Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, like the good forwards, and then just having him play beside Zach Bogosian. So if there are some big, tough meanies, Bogosian can take care of them, right? So I've seen enough videos on Lehtonen to like him. I genuinely do enjoy watching Lehtonen play. I really like what he could do for the Leafs. I'm concerned about giving him too much too soon. I don't like putting him in the top four. That's too much responsibility.
And I think you're right on that. And I think Sheldon Keefe would agree with you because he said in a tweet yesterday that while Mikko Lehtonen did look good, you can definitely tell that he's still adjusting to the North American ice. Yep. And that's a legitimate concern. I won't call it a concern, I guess, but that's a legitimate thing to keep in mind, obviously. Sorry, it's my turn to pick in the mess. This fucking timing is awful.
Take Tyson Barrie.
No, I'm not taking Tyson Barrie right now. Sorry, Mark. Not happening. Fuck, the goalies are going really quickly, eh? All right.
Take Francouz.
No, I took Grubauer. I think he's gonna get more starts, I think. All right. Anyways, so Mikko Lehtonen is still adjusting, obviously. But having said that, I think this might be a bit of a hot take, but over a full 82 game season, I would peg Mikko for 50 points. I think he is the clear-cut best free agent to come from the KHL in recent memory since Artemi Panarin. And if he adjusts to North American ice and he picks up speed, he is going to be an elite power play quarterback. And I know this is going to sound like the most typical fucking Leaf fan thing to say, but in that scrimmage yesterday, the blue versus white scrimmage, Lehtonen looked good. He is so good at getting pucks through traffic and putting shots on net, and he just looks so natural in that power play quarterback role. And obviously, I'm not judging this guy's skill set based on a scrimmage against his own fucking teammates, but I personally think that he is going to be used on that second power play unit. I think Keefe is actually already rolling him there. I think they're rolling two defensemen on the second unit with him and Brodie. And I personally think that he is going to play in that sheltered role to get him used and get him up to the NHL speed and get him used to the North American ice. But I don't think it's going to be long before he's in the top four with Jake Muzzin. Because Jake Muzzin also plays that type of game where he can protect Mikko and let him play his puck-moving game. Jake Muzzin can play the stay-at-home game better than like just as good as anyone else, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's interesting. Like there's like the Leafs have a fair amount of depth. Like I guess that's fair to say, right? Like the Leafs have depth.
Yep.
It's still so fluid. Like we have no idea where Travis Dermott's going to play, right? Sandin, what's he doing? Is he hanging out on the taxi squad or what?
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, there's a lot of question marks heading into the season. I think they're going to abuse the shit. Well, I guess not abuse because it's legal what they're doing, but they are going to utilize the shit out of the taxi squad to really see what the best version of their team is. Because especially with the extended rosters this year, they have so much room and so much talent to compete for roles on the team. And yeah, I don't think Mikko Lehtonen is ever going to be in the conversation unless he brutally falters in that sheltered role. I think the Leafs brought him over here with clear intention of him being one of their better defensemen. Yeah. And I think that if he thrives in that sheltered role and if he proves that he can keep up with the North American pace, then I think there's no reason he can't be one of their best defensemen this year. So my pick in the mess is up once again, but before I make my pick, I will tee up your next point. So we're gonna get to some Leafs predictions this year. So who do you think is going to lead the team in points?
It's got to be Matthews. It's got to be Matthews because he's going to be in on all cylinders of the team, offensively, defensively. He's going on the PK now, so he's got more responsibility. But with those 12 pounds lost, he's going to be flying around the ice. He's going to just be that much more dangerous. So I'm going with Matthews because he's got the goal scoring and he's still evolving as a player. So yeah, I just want
to go on record and say I just took Tyson Barrie like he told me to.
Good for you.
I just wanted to wait a little bit. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree fully with the Austin Matthews point. I mean, we did both pick him to win the Hart Trophy this year. So if we both picked him for the Hart and then said anyone else led the team in points, that'd be kind of foolish of both of us to say, no?
Well,
so, yeah. So if
Austin Matthews.
Yeah, but if either of them led the team in points, I'm not sure Matthews would win the Hart. So if he's winning the Hart based on our predictions, I think he's leading the team in points.
Yeah, that's fair.
So moving on, this one we might differ. Who do you think is the biggest bounce back candidate for this year?
I'd say Rielly because he really struggled last season, and that was a large part in he was injured. And Marner's not enough of a bounce back candidate because he was still above a point per game pace last season. Like offensively, Marner was fine. It was just that lack of effort that we were all crying for. Yeah. So I think my bounce back candidate is Rielly. Like he's got the most to gain from a good season. So
yeah, I agree with you on the Morgan Rielly front. Welcome to the Shanaclan podcast where Alex and Mark just fucking jerk each other off and agree on things the entire time.
Well,
anyways, yeah, Morgan Rielly, I mean, he is the most glaring candidate for a bounce back season. I mean, you could make an argument for Marner, like you said, he's not quite enough of a candidate. You could say something about maybe Alex Kerfoot if you really wanted to stretch, but Morgan Rielly was clearly playing hurt or something for all of last year until he came back from his official diagnosis. And so I guess that would have been the qualifying rounds like months later.
Yeah.
Actually, no, he came back for a couple games, if I'm not mistaken, before the season was
he did. Yeah.
And he looked better in those games. So he was clearly playing hurt or something like that for the first half of the season. And now that he's got his power play one spot back and he's fully healthy, I think we could see him return to his 2018-19 form where he had 20 goals and finished with 72 points or something ridiculous.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing though. Like we know what Morgan Rielly can do, right? So if he improves defensively, he's going to be fine. So yeah.
All right. Now, moving on to our last topic here, and once again, it's my turn to pick, so I'm going to tee this up for you. Who do you think is the best free agent signing? Or who do you think will end up being the best free agent signing?
Oh, man, I think it's got to be Jimmy Vesey. I love what he could potentially do for the Leafs and his role for the Leafs. I really like what he can bring because like he's a big body with skill and this is his redemption shot, right? Like this is where he can prove the doubters wrong and he's got the opportunities. He's able to play with Tavares or Matthews or Kerfoot. Meanwhile, when he was in Buffalo, he was playing with Marcus Johansson. Like, come on. So
Yeah. So for me, I bent the rules here a little bit, and I had 2 because I feel like there's going to be 2 guys that come out as the Leafs' best free agent signing, but for different reasons. And my 2 guys were Jimmy Vesey, like you said, and TJ Brodie. Now, I think Brodie is going to be the best free agent signing in terms of the effect it has on the team, because the Leafs have been the butt of everybody's jokes, especially when it comes to defensive play. You know, any Leaf hater or any critic, all you got to do is look at their defensive core and look at the fact that they blow leads constantly and look at the fact that their offense has been noticeably better than their defense every year. And you have all the material to ask for an hour. All you got to do is chirp their defense. But I fully believe that the Leafs defense this year is the best I have seen in years. They've got Morgan Rielly, TJ Brodie, and Jake Muzzin as their top 3. I think that is a hell of a defensive core, and Brodie makes that defense that much better. He's going to allow Morgan Rielly to play his game. He's going to be Morgan Rielly's first actual good defensive partner. Now, having said that, I think VC will also be the best free agent signing, but more for his individual success. I think VC's going to have the best season of any of the free agent signings. I think he's lined up for over an 82-game season, what would be considered a 20-goal season. But I think he's really going to thrive in that top 6 role with Tavares and Nylander. And I think those 2 guys are going to be the reason the Leafs had a good offseason.
Now, here's the thing, though. Like TJ Brodie, I view these signings as the risks, the pros and the cons, right? And that's the thing, though, is like TJ Brodie for face value looks to be an improvement on the D. But like we've seen it in the past where we've brought in Francois Beauchemin and thought he would be a great addition, and he was solid, but he just couldn't handle the media. Yeah. And then you get a guy like TJ Brodie, who's a very soft-spoken, quiet personality, and it's concerning because it's like, well, he has good analytics. He's proven he's a good defenseman. But can he handle the media? Can he handle that spotlight?
Yeah, it's a fair question to ask, but at the same time, you're also throwing him into a role where he's not going to be completely chastised with questions,
right?
Like other guys. Like he's not coming in here to be the number 1 defenseman. He's coming in here to be the number 2, or dare I say, even the number 3 defenseman.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to be under the spotlight as much as maybe a guy like Beauchemin would have been, or maybe a guy like, oh, fuck. Someone just took Matt Dumba from right under my nose.
Oh, God, that was Malcolm.
Malcolm, you asshole. Just kidding. Love you.
I'm going to tell him you said that.
Please do it. Well, all right. Nate Schmidt, I guess. But yeah, I mean, TJ Brodie's not going to be directly under the spotlight. It's not going to be like a Dion Phaneuf situation where he's coming in, he's immediately got the captaincy and the $7 million contract. I think Brodie's going to have a very quiet effect on the Leafs defensive core. I don't think you're going to see him blowing games as much as they normally do.
No, and that's fair because like he helps stabilize that defense, right? Like Brodie, Bogosian, and Muzzin will be the shutdown, the 3 main shutdown guys, right? So
yeah. All right. Well, that more or less wraps up everything that we've had to talk about. Hockey's in 3 days. We're back with the Shanaclan podcast. Hopefully going to be pumping out episodes maybe once a week now that we've got all these condensed games. So we're going to have a lot of content to talk about. Mark, any lasting thoughts before we kill the Zoom call?
Now, Matthews, Poppy, keep an eye out for him. He is a world destroyer, lost 12 pounds. He's going to be firing on all cylinders. He's out for blood.
All right. You heard it here first. Mark.
Hart Trophy winner.
All right. Well, as always, thank you very much for watching for the first time. This is the first time you've actually potentially been able to watch an episode and see our ugly ass faces while we ramble about hockey. Thank you for listening. We love you. We appreciate you. And if you listened, give us a shout out and we will give you a shout out next episode. You can follow us on Twitter at Shanaclan Pod, as always.
Not me, though.
No, not Mark. Mark's still without a Twitter account. He's in the same club as Donald Trump at this point.
I wonder what I did.
Yeah. He told someone, I'll kill you. All right. Well, thank you very much for tuning in, and happy hockey season. Go Leafs, go. Go hockey, go.
See you later, boys and girls.
This is the Shanaclan Podcast with Hobbs and Lutz.